objectively the Commission may have set about its work, the report itself, it seems to us, may just as well have been entitled The Case Against Lee Harvey Oswald. Are you satisfied that as much effort was put into challenging that case as into establishing it? In other words, did the accused man get a fair trial?
I'll answer that in just a moment. If I may just say one thing, which I'd like to say. In the first place, I had some questions to the propriety of my appearing here as a former member of the Commission to comment on the evidence of the Commission. It seems to be some question, and I think there is some question about the advisability of doing that, but I'm quite prepared to talk about the procedures and the attitudes of the Commission and the scope of its conclusions and so forth. But I will now try to answer your question by pointing out that this was an investigation and not a trial. We didn't have any plaintiff and defendant. This wasn't what is known as an adversary proceeding. We were all called upon to come down there to, I believe the wording was, the directive from the President, to satisfy yourself, that is the Commission, what were the relevant facts in relation to this assassination. And that's the base from which we started. There have been a number of suggestions that the Commission, for example, was only motivated by a desire to make things quiet, to give comfort to the administration, or to give comfort to the people of the country, that there was nothing vicious about this. Well, that wasn't the attitude that we had at all. I know what my attitude when I first went down there. I was convinced there was something phony between the Ruby and the Oswald affair. 48 hours after the assassination, here's this man shot in the police station. Well, I was pretty skeptical about that, but time went on and we heard witnesses and weighed the witnesses. But just think how silly this charge is. Here we were 7 men. I think 5 of us were Republicans. We weren't beholden to any administration. Besides that, we had our own integrity to think of. There's a lot of people have said that you can rely upon the distinguished character of the Commission. You don't need to rely on the distinguished character of the Commission. Maybe it was distinguished and maybe it wasn't. But you can rely on common sense. And you know that 7 men aren't going to get together and that character and concoct a conspiracy with all of the members of the staff we had, with all of the investigative agencies. It would have been a conspiracy of a character so mammoth and so vast that it transcends even some of the distorted charges of conspiracy on the part of Oswald.
What did you do on those visits to Dallas?
Well, we went there and walked over the Dealey Plaza, almost, it seems to me, foot by foot. We went into the school book depository. We talked to all of the police officers that were there, a number of the witnesses, visited the boarding houses that Oswald had lived in, retraced step by step his movements from the school book depository to the point at which he was apprehended in the theater. We chased ourselves up and down the stairs and timed ourselves. I sat in the window and held the very rifle with the 4-power scope on it and sighted down across it. See, must have been at the exact spot that whoever the assassin was sat, with the carton of boxes as a headrest. Snapped the trigger many times. Saw because we had a car moving at the ledge rate. Well, I can go on, but I'm just trying to give you the impression of what was the fact that we did assiduously follow this evidence and work out as best we could our own judgments in relation to it.
Mr. McCloy, the Commission came into being late in 1963, went through to September 64 when you were dissolved. Could you have used more time? There is the charge that your conclusions were rushed, that there is some stringent time scale imposed.
The conclusions weren't rushed at all. If there's any charge that can be made, and maybe this is an unjust charge because I wasn't in charge of it, I'm inclined to think that we perhaps rushed to print a little too soon. But the conclusions we arrived at in our own good time. I think that there's one thing that I would do over again. I would insist on those photographs and the X-rays having been produced before us. And in one respect, and only one respect there, I think that we were perhaps a little oversensitive to what we understood was the sensitivities of the Kennedy family against the production of colored photographs of the body and so forth. But those exist, they're there. We had the best evidence in regard to that, the pathology in respect to the president's wounds. It was our own choice that we didn't subpoena these photographs which were then in the hands of the Kennedy family. I say, I wish, I don't think we subpoenaed them. We could have gotten. Mr. Justice Warren was talking to the Kennedy family about that at that time. I thought that he was really going to see them, but it turned out that he hadn't.
It's not surprising that there should be some skeptics, quite obviously, to any such report. But how do you account for the fact that the disbelievers outnumber the believers by such a wide margin?
I think that if you want me to speculate on it, first place is the credulity of people generally. This is pretty spicy, pretty scandalous. Bear in mind that there have been an enormous amount of books written now, a large number of books written, pamphlets written, with the most shocking and distorted statements in regard to the evidence, with all of the blurbs and all of the propaganda. You know the business that goes with selling books. Many more, thousands of those have been distributed and read than the rather limited distribution of the report with rather prosaic accounts. So that I suppose this tends to build the thing up. There are other things that I suppose you can talk about. Strange attitudes that people associate their politics with their belief or their disbelief in the report. I've gone to a number of campuses, for example. I'm astounded to find that they, professors as well as students, in many of the cases, I don't say the majority, think that it's illiberal to come to the conclusion that a communist-inclined defector could have been the assassin of the president. It's liberal to feel that it was the result of a right-wing conspiracy in a hostile atmosphere of Texas. And nothing that you can say or do seems to be able to dispel their viewpoint. Maybe there's a general distrust of government and government agencies. I don't know. You can speculate, Mr. Cronkite, as much as I can about it. What I do resist and what irritates me is any suggestion that the commission were motivated other than by, and I'll leave myself out, there were competent people in that commission, people who were experienced in investigation, like the senators and the congressmen, been through many types of investigation. Dulles, who was all sorts of people who were used to dealing with FBI reports, appraising them, weighing them, taking many of them for something less than their face value. They went at this thing, and they came to this conclusion, and there was nothing fraudulent about it. There was nothing sinister about it, either conscious or subconscious, in my judgment. And I think that, as I say, that common sense would tell you that this must be the case. We may have erred somewhere along the line, but so far I haven't seen any credible evidence which dispels the soundness of the fundamental conclusions that we came to.